Good news for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Vita Vea has been signed to a long-term extension. He will not be traded. But bad news for the Chargers and Texans, losing key starters, getting ready for tonight's preseason matchups on today's NFL Six Pack.
This is Locked On's NFL Six Pack. 6 bold takes from 2 guys who just flat out know football. NFL experts Matt Williamson and Brian Peacock bring pure NFL talk. Great takes, no fluff, just honest football talk. Crack one open. It's NFL Six Pack on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to the NFL Six Pack. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson, breaking down all the latest from the NFL, getting ready for preseason game number 2 for most of these teams, preseason game number 3 for some. We are going to start, though, Matt, in Houston, I think, with a huge loss for the Texans. They play the Raiders tonight. We will talk a little bit later in the show about things we're looking for from the Texans versus Raiders games and the 49ers versus Chargers preseason games. But really a big hit for the Houston Texans, who have had trouble for years with keeping their wide receivers healthy. And the latest one is Jayden Higgins, who was going to be a huge part of this team. He was going to be the wide receiver, too, with Nico Collins for C.J. Stroud in that Texans offense. Jayden Higgins now has a torn ACL, Matt, and is going to be out for the year. And that suddenly makes this Texans wide receiver group look much weaker with other injury concerns across the roster.
Yeah, I hate seeing this. You know, young player, promising, lots of good reports.
I think one of the big breakout players probably this year,
maybe,
right?
yeah. I mean, fantasy people were buzzing about him. So I think they miscast him a little bit at times last year, especially when Nico was out, as like a big on-the-ball Nico Collins X. I don't think that's what he is. I think he's more of a move-around Z, big slot, pseudo CeeDee Lamb. You know, I mean, CeeDee Lamb's a great player. I mean, you know, I hate comparisons. Oh, he's like Jim Brown.
Yeah.
You know, but
tell me about it, man. The comparisons we're getting in San Francisco right now with
Stribling.
The only Hall of Fame comparisons at this point.
Of course. Of course. So I thought they really figured out his role as a real quality 2 complement to Nico, who I still think's awesome and could have a monster year. I really like Jalen Noel, but he's a different type of player. He's missed a lot of camp. I just read 5 minutes ago. It looks like he's coming back to practice today or tomorrow, though. Okay. I doubt he plays tonight.
That's big. Yeah, because that was my first thought. I was like, oh, this is big for Jalen Noel. Then he's been banged up, too.
Yeah, and I guess Tank Dell is putting pads on and a helmet. I don't know how much he's actually doing. Counting on him seems a little crazy at this point, but he's easily one of these out of sight, out of mind guys, because you mentioned having a hard time keeping receivers healthy. He's the poster child for that. And then fantasy people will hate hearing this, but the coaching, Xavier Hutchinson's just one of those guys everybody loves.
I was going to bring that up. Like, the
yeah.
fantasy community doesn't go big on him. And you want the upside guys, you want the higher drafted players, but the coaching staff says that we actually trust this guy, Xavier Hutchinson, and he's going to see a lot of playing time, I have a feeling.
Yeah, I bet he does, because he's always in the right place. He's not dynamic, you know, coach's favorite, blocker, tough guy, goes over the middle, probably plays special teams. So the cupboards aren't bare. But this is a real bummer. I mean, I think Nico could lead the league in targets.
You got Lewis Bond, the rookie. Justin Watson is that I just found out today that that's where he is and now in his career. You know, but I do feel like there's an opportunity for the Texans to do something here at wide receiver as well, and there might be some opportunities around the NFL. I mean, if Brandon Ayuk ever figures out what his situation is, you know, a desperate team could be like, look, we're going to bring in whatever we can because, you know, that's the reality of the situation when you get to a certain point. Keyshawn Boutte has been a player that has long been rumored to be available potentially from the New England Patriots.
It'd be a good compliment to Collins as a downfield guy.
Yeah. Now this I'm gonna bring up another name who's dealing with his own injuries right now, but the emergence of the guy I just talked about in San Francisco that everyone's comparing to Hall of Famers in Dejon Stribling after one preseason game. He's had a good enough camp that maybe the 49ers might say, well, we don't actually need the veteran now Christian Kirk, who we signed before the draft. Christian Kirk has been dealing with a quad though, and he hasn't practiced all camp. So he's already got an injury, so I don't know if that helps you, but he was in Houston last year with the Texans.
I like it. I think he's still a chain mover and has value. Jerry Jeudy's a name that came to mind. A lot of buzz around those rookie receivers. I don't think he reaches the trade deadline with Cleveland.
It's a good one. I think, Cleveland. There's a number of players that you probably just want to get out of the way for the young
pups. Yeah. So, and we also know if this would go all the way to the trade deadline and they were light, there's always a receiver you can get at the trade deadline, if not sooner.
And so it's funny because we go through this, and brings you back to one of the conversations that you just reminded me about that we talk about in the draft. If this was a left tackle, no shot.
No chance.
We just named half a dozen guys off the top of our head that you can get at wide receiver that could come in and start and play some meaningful snaps for you. It's harder to do if you need like a big time edge rusher or you need a big time, lineman, offensive tackle, certainly quarterback, and those positions too, which is why I think that we've jumped the shark as far as, wide receiver value, how highly they're being drafted, how highly, they're being paid, especially for the number 2s, number 3 guys in the NFL. So
you pry Calvin Ridley away for nothing, or right? Yeah.
I know it hurts to lose a young player and a promising player, an ascending player like Jayden Higgins, and it's rough for Higgins. Feel bad for the young man.
Absolutely,
not the end of the world to lose a wide receiver. That is something that you can replace somewhat easily at this point in the season and even midseason.
Yeah, especially in August. You got time to work some moves.
Although it's not the easiest thing for a wide receiver, you probably are going to be looking for a guy who's familiar scheme-wise with some terminology too, so you can get that player in and ready to go, which is why Christian Kirk kind of feels like a guy that, they could, it's probably just give us a 7th-round pick or whatever kind of thing, or maybe they can swap players that they need. Their Niners are low here, Texans are low here, they're familiar with each other and could probably get some.
It's actually a really good point in that it's easy on the GM to find a wide receiver. It's not always easy on that wide receiver when he gets to the new team.
Right. Yeah. Especially if it's a young wide receiver whose head's already spinning in the league. But a veteran that's been around and knows some terminology, you can usually plug that player in much quicker. Another just brutal injury for the Los Angeles Chargers, who dealt with numerous injuries on the offensive line last year, and it's happened again to them. Tyler Biadasz looks like he's going to miss the season. After somebody fell on his leg in the joint practice against the 49ers getting ready for this Thursday night preseason game. Tyler Biadasz, that's a rough one for the Chargers. Luckily, they had spent a ton of resources in the offseason and draft picks to try to add some depth and add some talent to the offensive line, but I don't think they wanted Jake Slaughter, their rookie. I think he ended up going in the second round, right?
Second round,
yeah, rookie second rounder Jake Slaughter. Welcome to the NFL. Welcome to the starting lineup.
Yeah, I thought this was a really interesting turn of events. Like, you looked at it like, well, the tackles are going to be back, and that's awesome. And you knock on wood, hopefully those two are awesome and play 17 plus games. But even I looked at their O-line and the offseason started and thought, but the interior is still not great. I mean, they lost Zion, who isn't great, and Becton never turned into much. And then Washington, I don't understand why they cut Biadasz. It kind of gave them a gift of, here's a starting center. You want him? Right. They grabbed him like a second later. And I didn't think he was a superstar, but it was an upgrade of who they've been playing with lately. And then they take Slaughter, which didn't quite add up to me either, because it seemed like they wanted to play him at guard. From what I read, Pipkins has been playing guard ahead of Slaughter, so I assume he'll now be the starting center, but it just seems fragile, especially after we saw on the O-line last year.
I mean, and a lot gets put on the center and in this scheme too, which is why you get a player and have him play guard and play some center and get his feet wet in the NFL before presumably year 2, they might have been, okay, now you're going to be ready. Now you're going to be our starter in the NFL. Like we talked about with wide receivers, and in this offense specifically, a lot is put on centers and they make a lot of calls. Yeah. And so that's going to be some growing pains there. And it's not like they have stalwarts at both guard spot in Trey Pipkins, who is someone you thought might lose a starting job. Cole Strange has bounced around. Trevor Penning is there and is bounced around as well. And again, and I love that they added guys like Slaughter and Travis Burke in the draft to give them some.
I forgot they had a Burke. I like Burke for
And so they prepared themselves as good as they could have in the position group that they needed the most help in. So good on the front office for giving themselves at least an opportunity. And Jake Slaughter's going to have to grow up fast if he is indeed the replacement in the starting center now as a rookie.
And it's kind of like the Texans conversation. At least he has 2 preseason games to get acclimated as a starter and a lot of practices. And, we'll see. But at least they have that.
Next, let's talk Vita Vea. There will be no Vita Vea trade, even though he asked for one. And in fact, I think asking for a trade might have gotten him closer to the extension. He did finally sign now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There's other injuries and signings around the league, particularly at wide receiver and running back, that we've got to talk about. And then what we're looking for here in this preseason matchups tonight with the Texans, Raiders, 49ers, Chargers. Next. Today's episode of the NFL Six Pack is brought to you by FanDuel. Baseball fans, if you think you know who's going to hit a homer today, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. Easy to play. All you do is you make a free pick on who you think is going to hit a home run in their game. And if you're right, you'll receive a free profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. Best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the MLB season. Daily Dingers is another fun way to stay engaged to every day's games, whether you're following your favorite team, keeping an eye on matchups across the league. Every game has someone capable of going deep. Now you get the chance to make your prediction before first pitch. And yes, of course, preseason football, season-long bets, NFL futures, you can find all of it at FanDuel. So are you ready to play your game today? Join all the action at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to play Daily Dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of the MLB. All right, we got a ton to get through here, and a big story with the Vita Vea signing and extension now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And there had been some teams that called the Bucs, and they apparently said, "Nope, we're not trading them." And they finally got a deal done. It's not a long term, but it's a 2-year extension, fully guaranteed. So an interesting deal here that they kind of came together on for Vita Vea. $30 million extension. Fully guaranteed, meaning $48 million over the next 2 seasons is fully guaranteed per his agent. That comes from Mike Garafolo there. So, yeah. Good news for that defensive front, and they absolutely had to figure something out.
100%. I mean, I don't think they're in rebuild Browns mode. We'll just trade him, get draft picks at all, especially with the state of the head coach and quarterback. It's a lame duck after this year, but I think they're the Vegas favorites to win that division, which I would 100% understand. From what I understand, too, Vea is loved in that community. Even if he doesn't go to the Hall of Fame, he's going to be like a Ring of Honor, all-time great Buck, big-time leader, all those things. And you hate to see those guys walk. I mean,
that's not someone you want to let out of the building.
Here, right? So you don't want those guys to leave. I don't think he wanted to leave. He's made right, and, it keeps you competitive, but it's not too much of a crippling deal that's a 3 or 4 year deal that if he starts to fall off. So I think this makes a ton of sense for player and team, and he's still really, really good.
And it also means that, potentially, let's say this team does kind of fall apart this year. And I love this for the Bucs. And I said previously, it's like, look, if you trade Vea, trade Baker, what are you really doing this year? You'd just be spinning your wheels anyway. And if anything, I think the Bucs need to go for it, go win this division, and even add on top of this and see what they can do, and then maybe reevaluate, and who knows, maybe they end up blowing it up in the offseason, and you could probably still then trade Vita Vea if you wanted to do that, and it made sense for what you wanted to do long term. But so it gives them options, gives Vea options, I think, as well, because it's not a long term deal, so he'll have some control over his future at some point in the very near future. But got that guaranteed money.
Yeah, so I think this makes a ton of sense for everybody. I mean, does it really do that organization long-term good to dump them for a second-round pick right now? No. It almost takes you out of competitiveness,
And then they probably weren't going to get some crazy big, first-round pick plus, which is what they would be asking for anyway.
Right.
Let's go back to wide receivers here really quick, because Jayden Higgins was the big one with the torn ACL, but he's not the only injury. Jordyn Tyson, we mentioned that he had gotten hurt, and I believe is it a hamstring? I've got it here somewhere.
Yeah, yet again.
And so
they're trying to tell us it has nothing to do with his old hamstring injury. I don't know if I buy that at all.
Well, it has to do with his old hamstring, even if it's not the same, if it's a new injury or an old injury, right? It's the same hamstrings. And it's just something that, one of the biggest predictors of getting hurt is past injuries, and so Jordyn Tyson, unfortunately, is going to miss probably a couple of months, I think is the latest report on him.
probably like 8 to 10 games.
Yeah.
I mean, that's brutal. And I've heard some people, some of their top beat reporters saying he looks like our best player already. Like the reports were glowing, and him and I heard a comparison. I wish I could remember who said it, but that him and Olave had a real Holt and Bruce feel to them. Neither one's the biggest, strongest, but in that dome, exploding out of their brakes and all that stuff, and move differently than others, blah blah blah. And sometimes those guys have a tough time staying healthy.
Athleticism has never been the problem with either one of those guys.
No,
unfortunately, their problem is much the same. It's staying on the field, and that was why it was. I had a little bit of skepticism pairing them together in New Orleans. Like, gosh, you already have a guy who's dealing with the same type of stuff.
You've said that a couple times, yeah.
And so can't say I'm super shocked that Tyson got injured, but it's also funny that all he needed to do is have that one workout. So teams would be like, yes, we can finally draft this guy because he's such a great athlete. We want a reason to draft him. And he gave the Saints a reason, and now we're dealing with hamstrings again.
Maybe they gave him an excuse to draft him as opposed to seeing the forest through the trees type of situation. Do you think Olave, much like Collins, gets a little bump because of this injury in terms of fantasy? Probably, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. But, you have to make contingency plans, I think, probably. But, I mean, yeah, as much as anybody. And you don't have to pay the price of what he could possibly give you, right? What's his ADP right now? It's not that high.
Goes pretty high. I think he's like a third-round pick. I mean, he's coming off a big year. They just gave him money.
Yeah, I guess it's not a discount. That's right where he should be, probably. Yeah. One player that neither the Texans nor the Saints will bring in is Keenan Allen, who is now off the market and is signed with the Indianapolis Colts.
I like it. I don't know that when Pierce is going to play. I did some Colts homework just recently, and again, some of this is fantasy related. Pierce seems like a long way away. I know the reports have been good on Daniel Jones. I just don't know that I'm buying it. I mean, nobody comes back from that injury as fast as he supposedly is. And they've been talking up Richardson and playing Richardson. And I wonder if Richardson's going to be involved to some degree. It looked like Josh Downs was going to get a huge spike with Pittman gone. And I think Allen's a little redundant with Downs.
Both slot monsters. And I get why they would want those types of players to pair with someone who's like that Alex Pierce type of a player. But Pierce right now on the PUP list. So
yeah, I don't know when we'll see Pierce. I would still think Tyler Warren leads the team in receptions, though. He goes really high in fantasy drafts.
That's a fair bet with a healthy Alec Pierce because he's more chunk yardage than chain mover anyway. Mm-hmm. And then, Westbrook Akine, Ashton Doolin.
I'd say before they signed Allen, their wide receiver room was really thin.
Yeah.
Really thin,
losing
especially
Michael
if you're not counting
obviously
on Pierce.
In the offseason. Deion Burks is
seventh-round pick.
End up being a 7th-round pick, and there's talk that maybe he even gets cut, and that's pretty rough if you're getting cut. Or Anthony Gold and Laquan Treadwell, the guys you're competing for a roster spot. I bet he doesn't get cut in the end, but at least you have a lot of speed, something to work with there, and I think you just already know what you have in all those other guys. But yeah, it's not a great group when you look at it, even if Alec Pierce is healthy.
And if he's not, it's really a lot of the same type of where's the speed, where's the explosives. It's a little worrisome.
Could Josh Downs do more?
See,
because bringing in Keenan Allen would seem to me that they are saying, because one of these two guys is going to be outside and starting, which I would think would be Downs, and you have Allen as the veteran that comes in and plays a little bit, but maybe not.
I've always been such a big Downs believer. He's such a separator, and he's a good football player. But he's 170 pounds. He's smaller than you even think. He's not 190. He's not 185. He's lean and he's little. And he doesn't play huge. But I did think the plan was when Pittman left for Downs and Pierce to be the outside guys with 2 receivers on the field. Warren will do slot stuff as well. But Allen's going to be a slot. I still don't really see a true X, Yeah,
they're going to run the heck out of the ball. And,
Taylor.
And throw the ball over the middle of the field.
Yeah, you're right.
But what other plans?
Chain movers and scheme up Warren and right.
Whether it's and it's funny because do we know Riley Leonard, Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson, Easton?
I don't feel confident
about
Jones.
Start week 1?
I know. I have my doubts.
Next, let's talk running back. We've got a couple of injuries there that we need to cover, and who might be the beneficiaries. And what about Scadaboo in New York with the signing of Najee Harris? Next.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Ross Jackson, host of the Locked On at Saints podcast, and today's Locked On episode is brought to you by our friends at Basque and Lather. I've been using Basque and Lather's all-natural, 100% organic hair care products for my beard for a couple of years now, and it's been a lifesaver because I used to have some bad beard care habits. I'm talking over-the-counter shampoo and the beard type stuff that created this brittle, scratchy, and uncomfortable beard that I just had to wear around all the time. But now the game done changed. Thanks to Basque and Lather, I got their beard care starter kit, which gave me shampoo, conditioner, oil balm, and their hair growth stimulator formula as well. And now my beard is full. It's soft but strong, and the confidence is on 10, and it's all thanks to Basque and Lather. Explore viral bestsellers and products of healthier hair of all types from Basque and Lather. Go to baskeandlatherco.com and use the promo code Locked On for 20% off. That's 20% off at baskeandlatherco.com. Code Locked On.
All right, some more big stories around the NFL. Do you think this is saying anything about Cam Scadaboo to be signing a player like Najee Harris, a former first-rounder? You know Harris is game well over there in Pittsburgh. And I would say some similar skill sets between the two, like hammer-style type runners there with Najee Harris and Cam Scadaboo. Is this just a good player that was available just for depth, or is this telling us something about Cam Scadaboo, especially, talking about
I think so.
Fantasy league, where you should be drafting this guy?
Scadaboo was going way ahead of everybody else in that backfield, Tracy and Singletary, and I never quite understood that because I don't think he's a super well-rounded player.
There's, just to pause on that really quick, there's memes going around amongst New York Giants fans about how much Harbaugh hates Tyrone Tracy, by the way. So
really?
They want to see him more, and apparently that's not going to be the case.
Well, Harbaugh played against Najee a ton, knows him well. He's not dynamic, and he's lost a step, I would imagine. But if you walk past him, you go, whoa, that looks like a first-round pick. He's long arms, huge hands, really big, strong, powerful dude. And he plays hard, and he's okay as a receiver. I think it's a direct reflection of being extremely nervous about Scadaboo coming off a really major injury, style of play. Remember, this group didn't inherit him, or they did inherit him. They didn't draft him. I think that's kind of a one-for-one comparison.
Don't forget about the rookie Damon Bankston, undrafted free agent. You got Devin Singletary as well. So interesting group of familiar names for the most part there with the running back group. And I do think it's going to be very committee-like there. So out on Scadaboo as a big-time fantasy producer as far as this year goes. But, he may just – it's what I've always said about Cam Scadaboo. He's here for a good time, not for a long time. And so his snaps will be fun, but how many snaps will he get would be the big question.
How long can he last? Can you count on him? And I think it's pretty clear they want to be a very physical offense. You bring in Patrick Ricard, and I mean that tells you all you need to know. And you draft Malago in the first round. I don't think it's any high, and they're not hiding what their intentions are.
Right. Yeah. Physicality ramping up for the New York Giants here under John Harbaugh. And a couple of injuries out there with Breece Hall and the Jets and Alvin Kamara as well.
Yeah, Breece Hall will be here tomorrow. He probably wouldn't have played anyway. They said 2 to 3 weeks. That just happened, I think, in practice earlier this week. You hope he's ready for the start of the season. That's when I think this fantasy owners have to keep their fingers crossed. They do have Allen. I don't think they'll do anything
impressed,
else.
And Allen kind of was a guy that really took over for Breece Hall at one point, and then all of a sudden it was like, well, what happened to Braylon Allen? And just confusing with what happened with the running back room there. But in the preseason game, Braylon Allen looked big and physical and looked really good again. And so I'd probably be buying the stock right now for Braylon Allen to start the year.
Unusually young. Maybe he's getting his grown into his paws a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I've always thought it was weird how they handled Breece Hall. They franchised him and extended him, and I thought he was a trade candidate when they were trading Sauce and
Same. We talked about it a lot here on the podcast. It's a really strange arc for Breece Hall.
And then the other one was Kamara, right?
Yes.
He's another one. I can't believe he's still a Saint. I thought he'd have been a Chief 2 years ago, and I think he's basically shot, but he's kind of like that Vita Vea conversation or Cameron Jordan. Like he'll be in their Ring of Honor or get his, I don't think he's going to the Hall of Fame, but an all-time great Saint, great player.
This is his 10th year, right? Wasn't he 27?
Yeah, he was in the Connor McCaffrey. Yeah. And that awesome draft class. I wonder if we ever see him again, to be honest. I mean, like if he had this injury at that age, I thought he was a borderline player to begin with.
And do we have do we have confirmation on the ETA on this injury? Like what's?
I think it's 8 weeks. I mean, it's well into the season. Yeah, from what I gather. So not great at his age. I would, they gave HEN money.
Yeah, he was already not going to be the main part of that. Kendre Miller's still around.
Yeah, right. Neal's okay.
Yeah. There you go. That's the news around the NFL. A bunch of people getting banged up, some worse than others, some much easier for their team to overcome than others. As bad as the Higgins and as bad as the Biadasz injuries are, I do think those are overcomable for those teams.
More we talk through them, I thought so too.
Yeah, and there's a ton of expectations, obviously, for the Chargers and Texans, but you start to get thin. And for the Chargers fans, you're like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
On the offensive line, why are we losing these guys for entire seasons? It's brutal.
I mean, your team knows as well, and they're playing tonight. It seems like a lot of the same teams, the Panthers, the Cardinals, have been the ones getting hit by injuries.
What are you looking for here? Let's do a quick little preview.
Mendoza. Mendoza steals the show, I think, tonight.
Okay, Mendoza, probably a lot of Mendoza. He's not going to be the starter, but I mean, that's always worth the price of admission. We talked about him last week as well. It's Raiders-Texans. Tonight is the first game. I call it an early game. It's 8 Eastern for you. The 49ers Chargers, by the way, they're kicking off for you at 10 p.m. Eastern, Matt.
I'll definitely watch the first half, though.
Whoa. First half. I want you to be texting me about the game in the fourth quarter, okay? Or else you are not doing your job.
Well, I just got back from Kentucky, and the bourbon supply is rampant here.
Oh, okay.
So,
well, you've got two.
So if I'm texting you at midnight, you're right.
And that is a lot of trips and a lot of stocking you're able to do to your liquor cabinet.
The kids are gone. No responsibility as a father anymore. Woo!
This is your first football weekend without the kids at home.
Indeed.
Wow.
Yeah. It was actually weird last year because my son, since he was like 4 years old, would watch football with me all day Sunday. And last year when he was at school, it was weird not having him around. He used to make me a little crazy, but I knew it'd pay off in the end. Like 6-year-old asking me, what's a cornerback or whatever, leave me alone. I'm trying to work.
And look, I know things are vanilla, but now really more interested than ever to watch this Chargers team. Jake Slaughter going to be watching what he looks like in this preseason game, presumably at center if he gets the start there. And also, how much does Herbert play? Does he play at all? I want to see what Herbert looks like in Mike McDaniel's offense. I mean, it's a huge story for the entire NFL, I think.
I think so, too. I think it's one of the most exciting sides of the ball in the NFL this year. Who's going to be the number one receiver? How they can deploy them? They, too, brought in a lot of big people. They brought in a fullback that's going to play a lot. They brought in a blocking tight end and Njoku. Are they going to live in 12 and 13 personnel? Who knows? I think it's fascinating. Could a Marion Hampton be a huge breakout candidate? And then you throw a little Mitchell in there too for speed out of the backfield. Now, I think that side of the ball is going to be really fun to watch. Maybe not tonight, but by opening day.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be vanilla anyways, scheme wise, but definitely want to see what that looks like. And he was dropping some haymakers in practice on the 49ers in the joint practice, and seeing him hit guys like Ladd McConkey deep down the field. It was pretty fun to see, even though he would have been sacked on some of these reps and they're not allowed to hit the quarterbacks. So now that's the other side of it is, can you protect him if he's in there? So you lose your center. Do you want to put your starting quarterback in a preseason game? So
no.
That might change plans there.
If you just had a physical joint practice just a couple days ago, I would bet that we don't see a lot of star power from either of these teams.
We are going to see some 49ers starters. I think from that side of it, the most exciting thing is both of the rookies, skill guys on offense. Kalen Black is going to see his first action. Been good reports from camp. McCaffrey's not going to play, dealing with quote unquote tightness. And then
could that be a contract issue with him?
I think that was Florio kind of fishing around. I don't think that's what's going on. I think it's more like veteran guy that they need to get 100%, make sure he's right for week one.
Keep him bubble
because he's already been doing a lot previously in training camp, and Also, everybody in the world knew that these contracts were coming, so it shouldn't be a shock to his agent. Oh no,
Right,
Bijan signed a contract. I can't believe it. Right?
Wow, Gibbs is going to stick around in Detroit.
And then Brock Purdy. Does he have any timing with the young rookie and Dejon Stribling? So does Stribling have another good game? And what does he look like with Brock Purdy, who he didn't play with? So this is the first game action for Purdy and Stribling. Is he someone that we can count on to be a starter and a big part of the 49ers offense? So that's going to be fun to watch there.
So, BP, last thing I got for you is I just recorded a Locked On Fantasy with Marcus an hour ago. Boy, I knew Stribling was gaining steam, but he is like skyrocketing up the wide receiver boards. He's like wide receiver like 35 right now.
Yeah,
He's super high.
He's climbing to the point where he won't be on my teams anymore, where he might have been a couple of weeks ago. Because
he's jumped like 20 spots in 2 weeks.
And he might still be in an okay spot because he started so low, right? And so maybe it's hard for the fantasy community to overcorrect before the season starts. But by Labor Day, he might be all the way up and too high when I'm drafting my main league. But when it comes to rookie wide receivers in the 49ers, and it's funny because everyone's going crazy about how good he looks. And Kyle Shanahan, every time he's asked about it, it's like, yeah, there's some stuff to work on. Like the first thing he says is like, yeah, I didn't like some of this in the first quarter, but then I liked, some other stuff. And so there's with a rookie receiver, there's clearly details. You've got Mike Evans, you've got Deebo Samuel. Does Christian Kirk stick around on this team? Does he make the team? If he does make the team, he's probably going to get a lot of slot work. Is he the fourth receiver to start the season? That's not going to be a huge fantasy contributor. So that's a path that could happen. He could also be a star,
Yeah.
It's a sliding scale for sure. And maybe that's going to be something to look out for. You get some clues to that in this preseason game.
I think he's now the first rookie off the board over Tate and especially Tyson getting in.
Yeah, I wouldn't be touching Tyson at this point. Rookie production for a wide receiver. It's tougher with rookie receivers than it is for running backs, obviously. Tate did not look great. Neither did Ward. I don't know if I'd be buying anything on that offense right now based on the first preseason game. We can overrate this stuff as well.
Oh, yeah. Concepcion kind of intrigues me for fantasy.
Concepcion's going to get the ball in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
I would draft him first of those.
I would too. I have him over Stribling.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
There's somebody else.
Boston.
Then
there's like Bernard and some of the second round guys.
Omar Cooper.
There's
reports that maybe he might not be the number 3. I think he'll eventually get that, but I thought he looked good in his first preseason game. Yeah, I don't know. Rookie wide receivers is tough.
It is.
Buzz. I think the
Lemon's been hurt like crazy too.
Who's that?
Lemon.
Right. Yeah, we haven't even gotten to see much of him.
Right.
It's been one of the quietest camps for a first round receiver ever.
Yeah, I don't think he's hardly practiced at all.
It's clear as mud.
It is.
Yeah. Concepcion. I'm going to plant my flag there. I
did
think
too.
There's a number of ways he can get the ball, and he looked awesome in his debut for sure.
He really, really did.
All right. There you go. That is the 6-pack for today. Thanks everybody for listening. Hit us up and get involved in future 6-packs. Let us know if you have any questions for next week's mailbag, anything you're looking for, or anything after these preseason games that you saw. Hit us with it at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL in the YouTube comments. And Matt and I back tomorrow right here in the NFL 6-pack.